Hello guys, and welcome back to another GameMaker Studio advanced tutorial, and this time we're gonna do the leaf particle coming from, well, a tree or something with the shaking of leaves. And of course you can do the same stuff on the background, but I thought like this is looking a little bit cooler if this is kind of a glowy little particle thing. Of course the darker the background, the more well, glowy it will appear. Of course if it is quite soft in a very light color, then of course then it has a different kind of impact. So therefore this is what we're gonna do in this hopefully not too long video tutorial. This is One Up Indie. I am a programmer, so if you like what you're seeing, hey, why not consider subscribing, sharing and liking. Alrighty, so we are done pretty much with that. So for that basically we just need a few things. So first of all, let's say a leaf sprite. That's it. This thingy here looks pretty damn ugly, but the important part is that it is whitish and then going a little to grayer areas. Of course you can go with a predefined one color thing, but this one we can recolor to other leaves, and therefore I guess the whiter the color, the easier it is to blend over with other colors. Then of course I will use a really, well, it's not too big, but 128 by 128 pixels, roundish glow thing. And of course I make it really small, but hey, not an issue. So the first thing which we're gonna do is basically have an object which is just all the time spawning the things, and then later on we will just put one in the background. So let's kill this one for now, and of course this one is then called particle spawn point. So basically everything will be stored in these specific objects. So I won't be having an extra. Normally I have one extra setup where all the particles are set up. We just do it separately in all the particle kind of systems enclosed in one object, and therefore you can reuse them and edit them separately. For example, if you don't like the idea of having stuff being separately around. So let's kill all of that, because what we're gonna do is quite a few things. So first of all, we're gonna loop it through an alarm. You can of course do that with an emitter and so on, but I guess with an alarm it's a little bit easier to pull this one off, even though this is an advanced tutorial. So the first thing which we're gonna do is have a loop time, and therefore I will just copy paste a few variables in. So basically we're gonna have a loop time min, max, and what we're gonna do once, for example, our alarm is, well, being triggered, we just say something like, well, alarm set, and set, here we go, and then of course 0, and then we're just gonna create a variable, so loop time, here we go, and then we just loop between the minimum and the maximum value. Of course here you can go with the values random range which you like, so min, max, and therefore every time the loop time will be a new time, therefore it appears a little bit more random. So this is basically just for refreshing and looping. So refresh loop, here we go, now with double O. Alrighty, so this is how we can trigger this, and of course now we are basically doing nothing. So the first thing which we like then to create is basically our particle, but to have a particle being spawned we need to create a system. This is what we're gonna do. So what we're gonna do is part system, then create, and here we're gonna go create or create layer. Let's go with layer, so we can just spawn it on the instances layer, which is our default one, and then as you can see this is very high up, so it will overlay everything. So here it needs, come on, what does it need? First of all the layer, so this one is the instances, here we go, and then if it's persistent, so basically if it's traveling over to the next room, we say no, we don't need that. And now we need to customize and create our particle. For that we need just one, and we just call it part leaf. So basically we can just call it particle leaf and set it to part type, and then of course we just need to create it so there is one there. Of course here we need a system, because later on we need to, well, grab that and use it. So basically we just say, hey, particle system, or whatever variable you like to have, so we can reference it and say like, hey, create our, well, particle system, and then create our particle, which is our leaf particle. And now we can customize, and this is then, I guess, the more interesting part. So first of all, we just say part type and say like, hey, we need to, and we want to sprite, here we go. We need to grab a sprite, and which one we want to have? Well, the one which I just showed you, so the leaf. Then a few things to consider. Animation is kind of important. So do you want it to animate? So for example, if there's an animation, we don't need to do this, because this is just well, having one image index. So basically there is no animation here. Then stretch, this is kind of interesting. So this just basically means, hey, is this being bound to the image speed which is inside the sprite which you set up? So basically how many frames per second or whatever. Or you can say like, hey, stretch it out to the lifetime of the particle. Therefore you just say 0, 1, but here 1, 0, it doesn't really matter because there's no animation. And of course random, you can go 0, 1, it doesn't really matter because we just have one sprite. If for example you have an animating sprite, then of course change it to 2 or 3 parameters to your liking. Alright, so the next thing which we want it to do is basically fall down. And for that we just say like part type gravity, here we go. Then once again, which one? Here, and then we just say gravity amount. For that, let's go with a soft value of 0.2. And then which one do we want to go point? Then we are pointing basically to the right side, and then it will fly because this is 180, so we're going to the left side, and then you will see a few things. So we can we start it? Let's see, we can actually start it, so let's check it out. And nothing happening because we are not, nothing is happening because we are not spawning anything. So we need to go and spawn our particle. And how can we do this? Well, kind of easy. We just say, where are you? Particles, particles, and then create, and then we can go color or create. We just go create. For that we need first of all, well, our particle system, which we have in here, which is saying END. I don't know, I guess it's a little bit misleading. Then X and Y, where to spawn it. For that we just say on the same position which we are starting. Later on we're going to change it. Then what kind of particle we want to spawn? Well, the one which we created. And then the number. For now we just go for 1, and now you will see that we are looping and that we are spawning one particle which is flying to the left. So, and they are all white. Not very impressive, I know, but we're gonna work on that. So the first thing which we like to do is first of all say that we need to change a few of the parameters. So first of all we gonna say, hey, how long are you there? So we say part type life, and then of course this depends how long and how fast that thing is. So basically if you have a particle which is flying much faster, then of course then you should change the life of it drastically. So here min max, I just went for 1 second to, I don't know, 1 second and some crumbs. And then the next thing which we like to do is, hey, give it a specific size. So there are a few changes. So part type size, here we go. And once again our particle which we want to customize, and then there's a min size and a max size. I don't know, I just go between 0.1 to 1. And then do we want to increase it? No. And do we want to wiggle it? Here very for example, if you would like to wiggle it, then it would look kind of I don't know, not fluent, but basically it wouldn't look too good. So therefore better keep that as a 0 value. And then the next thing which we like to do is recolor it, because hey, why not? So for that we can have custom colors. So I don't know, something which you like. Or what I did, I just basically took out 3 colors for coming from the tree. So the leaves are appearing here. So for example, if you go under edit and for example, take out that color, double click, then you have red, green and blue values. And therefore you can just pick out the first color, second color and third color. And then you can kind of artificially create those and just blend them over there. And this is basically what we're gonna do. So let's copy that stuff. And what we can basically do is create those colors. So let's say color 1. And then how can we reuse RGB colors? Well, we just say, where is that? Make color, and then you can go with RGB or HSV, but of course we just go for RGB. Come on, completely wrong. RGB, here we go. And then we input those colors, and of course let's copy paste that because I took all those 3. And then we're gonna say, hey, take one of those 3. And for example, if you would input it here, this would mean that it goes from this color, then to this color, and then to this, which we don't want. We want to have one random one of those 3. And therefore we say, once we are spawning the leaf, we just say like, hey, what kind of color are you having? So one type and then color, here we go. And then we just say color 1 of our leaf, and then we just say like, hey, one random color, so var random color. This is just a variable which is just resetting it every time, and we just say, I don't know, choose, and then we say, hey, one of those 3 guys, so 1 2 3, boom boom. And let's check it out. This should already look a little bit neater. So first of all, the size is different and the color is different, and of course the life is shorter. And what do you say? You don't want it like this? Here we go. We didn't fill this out, so we just say, hey, and what kind of color do we want to have? We just input the random one. Here we go. And as you can see, different kind of colors are being there. So this is already pretty neat, but we need to do a little bit more. We want it to fall down, and therefore we need a force which is pulling it down. For example, you could use gravity for that, but I think it looks a little bit nicer if you just use, well, direction and speed. So we go part type direction, here we go. And then for that we need to import what kind of direction we want to put in, and for that we just say, hey, it straight goes downwards, so no deviation in this kind of regard. Increase, how are we increasing it? I did so, but very, very slightly, so it's pulling a little bit more downwards. And here, if you like, for example, you can go with a value of 5, then this thing will wiggle a little bit, and then of course the effect will be a little bit nicer. So let's go with 0 for now, but of course later on we can actually input it. And then we just say like speed, what kind of speed value do we want to use, because direction without speed doesn't work, because it needs to have a speed value. And therefore min speed, max speed, I don't know, let's go for those values which are put in. So 0.5, 0.8, of course here you need to adjust it. Do we want to increase it? No. Wiggle speed? No. And here we go. So for example, now we started, and now we have a force which it is pulling down. All right, so what you're seeing here is basically what we are getting. So this is already much nicer. And of course we can make it even more nice by creating kind of a zone, because we don't want it to be basically being just put from the X and Y position, which is here. We want to have it a little bit more around. So how can we do this? Well, kind of easy. We just say like, hey, do that in the alarm event, and we just say, let's go and create random values for X and Y. So random X, is then, I don't know, a value which is randomly set. And for example, this we can say like, hey, what kind of range do we want to have? I don't know, we can call this variable whatever we like. We just go, I don't know, let's call it buffer range. Let's go for range. Why not a range? Here we go. And then for example, range would be 20 points, so 20 pixels, something like this. And then we can use this value, and later on you can, for example, just change the one value over here, and then boom, it is being applied. And then say between 0 and the range. And of course we can do the same for the y value, so random y. And of course now we can replace that actually by the x and the y value. Here we go, boom. But of course we need to have that plus x and plus y, because this is then bound to the position where it starts from. Then once again, let's see how this looks. Random range. Here you go, my bad. All right, and as you can see, this is much nicer because it is kind of spreading it all around. But of course we don't want to spawn all the time just one leaf. Maybe we want to have multiple ones. So therefore what we can do, and this is I guess the last amount. So this is I guess the last variables, or the last two ones, which I'm gonna call, I don't know, amount min and max. So here two values, once again just two variables which are signifying how many things we want to spawn each time, and therefore we want to keep that randomly. So we just say like var amount is between the min value and the max value of the amount. So here we go, and close that off, boom. And then of course say random range, but here we go for irandom range because we want to do what? Well, repeat the whole thing. So repeat, here we go. And how many times? Well, with the amount which we used, and then of course boom, we close it off. So here, so hopefully this doesn't look too confusing. So first of all we just say, hey, how many times we want to spawn each time we are looping. So this is signified by the amount. Then of course we give it random values of position, then we just give it a random color, and then, well, we give it, well, here this is the random color part, and then we at the very end spawn one particle, and then of course, well, so many times. So let's check this out, and of course then we are pretty much finished with the 1 point particle. And this is basically the same stuff. It is, well, being dragged to the right side, going a little bit down. So this is kind of the wind effect here. We are spawning it around, and of course here this already looks pretty neat. And of course then you have to play with the values or with the sprite which you are having. And here we can do kind of a same-ish thing for the other part. So this is then the wind particle. Here this will be a little bit easier, so we can copy paste a lot of things, so, and input that into the particle, which I just call particle screen, because this is going then on the whole screen. So let's put that, this is the icon. No, we want to have the object screen. Here we go. Just put it somewhere, because this will be not bound to one position. It will grab the camera width and the height and then spawn it. So how does that look like? Well, first of all, a lot of things are the same, but here I wanted to go from a yellow color going to a green color, then going to a yellow color, and we will have our type color inside, which is then, as you can see, this is then the create event of the screen, and here we will go from one color to the other one to the other one, and therefore I put the color in there so it won't be randomly picked each time. So this is a static thing now. So what changed? So basically we are well, having a longer loop time, so between 10 and 30 steps. Then the min max value, as you can see, it's much higher because we are spreading that stuff on the whole screen. Then here point extra is basically just a little bit of a buffer, which I'm going to explain in a few seconds. And I'm going to use the amber glow. So this is this dude here. Basically very, very similar code. And then, well, we are on the wrong thing. So we are just using the amber glow. And then we are going between 3 colors. And then we have alpha 3 also, which is starting at 0. So it starts as transparent. You don't see it. Then we just go to 0.7 and then 0.1. And of course the size, I have to make this quite small because that thing is quite huge. And then I want to shrink it, but very, very, very softly. So here, that's why you see those really small numbers. And of course, gravity and life are kind of same-ish, but here I kicked out the speed and the direction. Therefore, this is what you see on the screen. Here, a few things are different, but basically the same. We are still having an amount. We are grabbing random X and Y values, but here what we need to understand is now we are grabbing values of the camera. So first of all, we need the camera X and Y. So basically this position, which is top left of the camera. So if the camera is while moving, we are moving with it. So get view X, get view Y. So I've done that in other video tutorials. So I'm just explaining what they do. And then we say like, hey, width and height, this is important from the camera. So this is grabbing the width, this is grabbing the height. And then we just combine that into, well, from the starting point, from camera X, camera Y, and then plus a buffer of a little bit going to the left and a little bit going to the right with the width. So this is on the X axis, and this is on the Y axis, and boom, then we are inputting those things. And then what you see is that we are spawning everywhere where we are on the screen, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right also. And then basically we're just spawning one as it seems, and then we are looping. And this is the whole difference, but we are just using a different sprite. So for example, once we started, boom, we're having a kind of different effect, but I think it looks kind of neat. You can have it as an overlay, so the darker the color is of the background, then the more visible it will be. I've seen it, for example, with some other stuff. So I've seen it with, what was that? With color, what was that? 3 white, then 2 going to see yellow. I've seen it in the video, I don't remember which one it was, but it looked pretty neat. Yellow, and then going to see gray. Here we go. Yes. And then of course it was an amber glow. It was just one thing, which was one sprite, so something which was just 1 pixel. So basically, let's say this amber, so just 1 point. So we can actually use this guy here. So this guy, let's go for the amber white. Change it because it was just 1 pixel. Let's go change it to 1 pixel. And of course, this looked nice. Also, boom. And is it white? Yes, it is white. Sweet. So we're gonna use this one inside our, not point, but our screen. So we're just gonna replace it. And of course, now we need to make it as a size of 1. So boom, boom. And let's see how that looks like. Of course, this will now be extremely subtle because it's just 1 pixel, even though it is a little bit bigger. And this is then of course having a very subtle effect overall, so you kind of simulate wind or whatever. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you can actually see this. So let's go with 2 to 3. There we go. But the bigger you will make it, then of course the more muddy it will look like. But of course, boom, now you see it. Of course, this has a neat glow effect overall. So once again, hopefully that was of interest to you. And now this video, which was overdue, I guess 2 years or 1 year or 1.5 years, something like this. This is what I did. And that's why I didn't want to show it. It was okay, but I thought like, I'm not sure if it is part of my quality standards, but I guess the background stuff is pretty neat anyway. So hopefully that was of interest to you guys, and see you in the next one. Have a good one. One up indie.